All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Shanlee Davis. I am a pediatric endocrinologist at the University of Colorado and Children's Hospital Colorado. And I am presenting today on our proposal for a rare disease clinical research consortium project that a lot of people are involved in. So I'm presenting on behalf of kind of our whole group here. Our proposed name is called NASCAR, Networking for Advancing Sex Chromosome Aneuploidy Research Readiness. And just to back up a little bit and just make sure everyone's on the same page, Turner syndrome is, when you think of a broader picture, part of the sex chromosome aneuploidies, so a different number of sex chromosomes other than the standard two sex chromosomes that you see typically. So you can see here, when we look at all of the sex chromosome aneuploidies, these top four here are including karyotypes that represent Turner syndrome. So a little bit of background in the Turner syndrome, as well as just the greater SCA community, we have a significant unmet need for evidence-based clinical treatments. We have many great clinicians and researchers across the country with a lot of great ideas. We also have strong partnerships with advocacy organizations, including TSSUS and other Turner syndrome and sex chromosome aneuploidy advocacy groups, as well as the patients and families more broadly. And we also have a basic infrastructure with a clinical research longitudinal registry to collect natural history data for these conditions. However, we have not a lot of money, and funding would help us really organize and advance the research potential and potential for treatments in these conditions on a broader scale. So there is this NIH funded resource called the Rare Disease Clinical Research Network, or RDCRN. And this funds approximately 20 different RDCRCs, or the consortia, for specific rare disease groups. This is just this honeycomb shows some of the different currently funded RDCRCs out there. Every 5 years, this funding source opens again for new rare disease research consortia, and we have submitted to be a part of this. Each of these rare disease research consortia are a collaboration of clinicians, researchers, and other individuals in the stakeholders invested in these rare disease conditions, with the goal of trying to get us to a place where these rare disease conditions can be what we call clinical trial ready. And we indeed want to be one of the new RDCRCs that will hopefully be funded this year. So backing up a little bit of clinical trial readiness and what does that mean for a rare disease, there's lots of different components that have to be put into place in order for us to be able to do clinical trials for treatments in rare disease conditions. We have to know the natural history of the rare disease and what we specifically want to target changing. We need to know the priorities of the community from a research perspective. We need to have valid outcome measures to measure what's important to the community in a way that we can actually test differences if we are doing an intervention of some sort. We often need biomarkers because often the outcome measures that we care about are down the road many, many years, and biomarkers may be used to be able to identify changes in these long-term outcome measures in a much more compact clinical time frame. We obviously need treatments and pilot studies as well to be able to get us to a place where we can conduct large-scale clinical trials. We also need kind of the infrastructure administrative components, including clinical sites to conduct research at, research participants who are willing and able to engage in clinical trial design and readiness, and then the clinical trial designs that are often need a little bit unique designs for rare disease compared to clinical trials for blood pressure medication or cholesterol lowering medication, where there's hundreds of thousands of individuals that might be able to participate. So breaking this down into what we have proposed for this NASCAR grant, And also, a lot of this isn't really novel. It is really set based on the call for applications. So you have to have an administrative core that helps put a lot of these administrative pieces into place. You have to have a career enhancement core that is engaged in training the next generation of individuals who are going to provide care and or do research for these conditions. The DMCC is a data management committee and data management coordinating center, and that is a separate entity of the RDCRN that is we collaborate with. We need a pilot grants core, which is allowing us to do some smaller clinical trials or get us ready for clinical trials in the future. And these are awarded in smaller increments, but allow us to do some of the maybe research that a lot of people are proposing on here as today. And then we have a couple of, or three different projects that we're going to go into in more detail. Overall, the NASCAR proposal has leadership proposed from different sites throughout the US, different specialties, and different investigators at different organizations and targeting different conditions overall. So the administrative core is the overall PI is Nicole Tartaglia, who is a developmental and behavioral pediatrician who has worked in sex chromosome aneuploidies, both Turner syndrome and other X and Y variations for her entire career. The Career Enhancement Core is being led by Judith Ross, who is a pediatric endocrinologist at Nemours Hospital for children in New Jersey. She has also been heavily involved in clinical trials for Turner syndrome as well as other X and Y variations. The Pilot Grants Core is being led by David Hong, who is a psychiatrist at Stanford, who has done a lot of both clinical but also primarily research for Turner syndrome and these other conditions, looking at differences in brain development in particular. And then the three projects that we're going to talk about a little bit more on the next page here. So project one is longitudinal registries to inform the natural history of all SCA conditions. So this is building up our existing registries that we have called Insights for Turner syndrome and Galaxy for other X and Y chromosome variations. These are clinical registries that are at 16 different clinic sites throughout the US, and individuals with conditions, we ideally want to get a representation of individuals with SCAs that are appropriately representing the entire population across the US. And this can serve as an infrastructure for natural history questions as well as future clinical trials. In Insights in particular, we currently have 700 participants with Turner syndrome at 13 different sites. This thus far has already led to 3 publications and has really been built on the support from community organizations. Project 2 is being led by Dr. Strang and Dr. Prakash. Dr. Strang is a neuropsychologist at Children's National who has an interest in and has a lot of existing research looking at individuals with X and Y variations as well as intersex conditions that really using community engaged participatory research methods. And Dr. Prakash, as you all know, is a cardiologist at the University of Texas at Houston and has had a longstanding history, particularly in Turner syndrome and engagement with the Turner syndrome community. The Project 2 goal overall is to engage the SCA community to identify and prioritize clinically meaningful outcomes for this population that we may target in future trials. So essentially understanding more what is important to the community for us to be studying. And then finally, Project 3 is looking at establishing severity scores and predictions of those severity scores for individuals with sex chromosome aneuploidy. The focus on Turner syndrome and Klinefelter syndrome is the 2 largest groups that we are going to start with studying. And this is being led by Dr. Armin Rosnahan at the NIH. He is a neurologist who has been at the NIH for many, many years and has a robust research program that has been studying, looking at RNA-seq and other multimodal technologies in order to advance research and biomarkers in these conditions. And so for this proposal, we aim to use insights in Galaxy data, including the clinical records and the biorepository, in order to be able to define what we call dominant axes of clinical variation. So essentially developing these clinical severity scores, as we know that these conditions exist on a spectrum and not everyone is as complicated or as involved as others, and to develop then biomarkers that might help us predict these severity scores in this population as well. So a quick status update. We submitted this over 1,000-page grant proposal back last fall, and after many delays with the NIH and being reviewed and whatnot, we finally had this reviewed in last month, and we received a fundable score. But because of the NIH uncertainties and with all of the changes in the NIH and budgets and whatnot, we don't have a promise for funding, but we are currently cautiously optimistic and awaiting the next steps to be able to move forward with this process. We anticipate that we will hear definitively by September 30th, which is the end of this current fiscal year. And if funded, this would provide $1 million per year for this infrastructure for the next 5 years to be able to fund and increase funding for sex chromosome aneuploidy research. Again, not any one specific project. It would be the infrastructure overall and ideally lots of future projects. This is not an exclusive group by any means, and if individuals are interested in being involved and not already involved, go ahead and email me and we'll be sure to find a place for you to fit into this future if funded. Thank you.